My name is Amy Noble. I am a third culture kid. And these are the people who have shaped who I am.
My name is Colin Sanders.
My name is Katrina Klassen.
My name is Rothby Tom.
My name is Brooke Cordell.
My name is Courtney Adele.
My name is Steve Noble.
My name is Karen Noble.
I'm Jordan Crowther.
My name is Hita Bhakta.
My name is Ben Amundsen. I'm a third culture kid.
My name is Mary Swing. I am originally from Loma, Colorado, but I grew up living in China, and I'm a third culture kid.
I'm born and raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado native through and through.
I am from Fort Collins, Colorado.
I am from Longmont, Colorado.
I'm from Morrison, Colorado.
I am from Hawaii.
I'm from Torrance, California.
Oh, I'm from Torrance, California.
I was born in Australia, raised in England, and now live in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Originally am from India, but I live in New Mexico, and then I'm going to college at Colorado State.
So, originally I'm from Southern Colorado. I moved to Santa Fe for about a year, and after that I moved to the Netherlands when I was 11.
I'm from Lakewood, Colorado, and Sumatra, Indonesia, and Venezuela, and the United Kingdom, and Texas, and Wyoming, and North Dakota, and a lot of dang places.
My name is Karen Noble. I'm 53 years old. I live in Durango, Colorado, and I am a mom. I have lived in many different places. I was born and raised in Torrance. I lived in Beverly Hills, California. I lived in Santa Monica, California. I lived in Alice Springs, Australia, in the Northern Territory of Australia, and I have lived in England, the north of England, and then I moved back to Torrance, California. Now I live in Durango, Colorado. My favorite place that I've lived is Australia, but every place I have lived, I've made my home, and I've been happy there. Do I wish I could live somewhere else? Right now, no, but I do wish I lived closer to both of my children.
I definitely wish I could live somewhere else.
I would love to get out of Colorado one day.
Definitely, yes. I believe I should and want to live somewhere else.
I definitely wish I could live somewhere else. I'd love to live in a big city like New York or LA or Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could live somewhere else, I definitely would.
No.
I don't know that I can ever really see myself settling down in one spot.
When I first came to CSU, I did not wish that I could live somewhere else, but the longer I've been here, the more I do envision myself or wishing that I could be somewhere else.
No, I do not wish I could live somewhere else. Living where we are is something I've been wanting to do since I was a little kid. 40-something years I've dreamt and looked for this house, and my wife found it. And no, there's nothing I could say better than living there. It's just fantastic. My name is Steve Noble. I'm 58 years old. I've been retired for just over 3 years now. I worked for Northrop Grumman for 34 years. Started off at TRW. Northrop Grumman bought him out, and I worked overseas at a great project for over 20 years. Home to me is always going to be Torrance, California. That's where I was born and raised, and I lived there for most of my life until January '98. I moved away. I've had so many different homes. Home is where you lay your head and where you're happiest. So I've had homes in several different places. I lived in Torrance, California, Lomita, California, Alice Springs, Australia, Aurora, Colorado, Harrogate, North Yorkshire in England. And then I now live today, 2020, I live in just outside of Durango, Colorado, in a place called Bayfield, up by a lake, Lake Vallecito. But living out where we live now is the water in front of the house, the mountains, the animals. It's really, really, really nice where we moved to, which is why we chose that as our forever home.
Home for me has changed a lot, just because for me it's more about the people. It's who I'm with that really make me home.
It's like kind of hard to say where home is. That's why I kind of identify it more as people in my community more than a specific place itself.
Fort Collins is definitely my home because I've lived here my whole life. But I would say my home is definitely my sister.
I would say home to me is wherever art is.
Home is Longmont, where my parents are.
Home, that is so tough.
I don't know. It's kind of changed over the years.
Home to me is a difficult question. I sometimes don't really feel like I have a home anymore. I guess home is wherever my parents are now.
I think that home for me is where my family is. I used to think that home was Loveland, Colorado, because even when I was growing up in Loveland, Colorado, that's all I knew. And then when I moved to China, I also thought it was Loveland, Colorado because my nationality was an American and the only place I'd lived in America was in Colorado. But ironically, when I came back here and I started school, it felt less and less like home. I had to kind of reorient myself, figure out what it really meant to live here. So that's just my home, I guess. My name is Mary Swing. I'm originally from Loveland, Colorado, which is like 20 minutes away from here, but I actually grew up living in China. So I lived in Hong Kong for 1 year, and then I lived in mainland China in Wuxi. I lived there for the next 6 years before I came back here to CSU. So I'm a Colorado native, I guess you can say, but I've lived and grown up in China and Hong Kong. I have lived in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I've lived in 5 places. Being here at CSU is the longest period of time that I stayed in one place.
I have lived in Hawaii my entire life.
Since I grew up in Colorado Springs and in Fort Collins, I haven't lived too many places.
I have lived in many different places.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Just one.
For the 21 years I've lived, I've stayed in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Like 4 different places? How many places have I lived?
I would say 4 different places.
The tough thing is I was evacuated several times for landslides, for political corruption going on, for strikes. The world's most deadly tsunami hit Indonesia when I was there. The world's most deadly landslide hit Venezuela when I was there. So even in Venezuela, I would be evacuated and moved to a new place several times. So I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to count. My name is Ben Amundsen. I'm a third culture kid. Where am I from? That's a tough question. I'm from a lot of places. I've moved like 12 or 13 times, but lived in Venezuela for a while, Indonesia, lived in Denver, Lakewood, lived in North Dakota, Wyoming, Texas for a little bit, lived in the United Kingdom for a short while, spent some time in Singapore, so I've been to kind of a lot of places. Indonesia was probably the longest I was in a different country for one period of time that was 3 years, but usually for a year to several months in some of these places before we moved. If you ask me what's the most eye-opening experience, it would probably be Indonesia, but what had the best food, it would be Venezuela. If you ask me my favorite spot, it would probably be Colorado. Living in Lakewood and Fort Collins has been awesome to me, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade those other places because they taught me a whole lot about life. Yes, I have experienced culture shock, especially in airports, just flying to a different place and it's completely different. And the one thing I will say is a lot of people travel and come back to America and they really want to criticize American culture. That with too much time on your phones, you care too much about how you look, stuff like that. One thing to me is that I would never, when I went to Venezuela, I didn't go and criticize Venezuelans, and I didn't want to do it when I came back to America. So it was different and it shocked me and I had to adapt to it, but I've always been more of the adapt than the criticize type. There are things that make every culture beautiful in my mind, even the American culture.
Phrase culture shock means not understanding pop culture references, not understanding kind of just like what everyone else experiences and not having those shared experiences that like my American peers would have. And so for me, culture shock was really just feeling like kind of left out in terms of conversations. And I would say that my freshman year of college, I experienced culture shock. But I didn't even know that that's what I was experiencing during my first year. It took me that full year and then into the summer before I was like, wait a second, was that culture shock?
To me, it feels like these kind of small things that accumulate, like one after the other, these questions that I don't know how to answer, like what is home? I didn't know what coming in clutch was, as an example I give a lot. Chick-fil-A was a big one. Yeah, I didn't know all these these restaurants, these fast food chains. What's the first step to getting my driver's license? What does car insurance look here? Someone said Red Robin, and then everyone in the apartment said Yum at the same time, and I just remember being like, what the hell just happened?
Culture shock means a lot of different things to me, and it means a lot to me at the same time. I kind of didn't realize how impactful culture shock could be or would be until I actually went through it. My life changed a lot when I basically just left everything behind in one country. I left all my friends, packed up all my things. I felt very out of place a lot of the time. I felt very different, and I was sad for a long time, but also having the best time of my life with the new things that I was going through. But I think the biggest feelings were definitely, I felt different. I was very aware that I came from somewhere else, and I was sad for a long time, but it ended up being happy.
I never really experienced culture shock because I've never come from one place and had to go to the other. That's a very individual experience when you are coming in from a different world and entering a different world in a different culture. It was really hard watching the people that I love struggle.
I experienced a little bit of culture shock when I went to India. I was there for about 3 months. I just think you don't really realize the culture that you're in until you've experienced another one.
Oh, I was in culture shock after 19 years of living overseas. Culture shock was moving back to Los Angeles.
I definitely experienced culture shock when I moved from Lowell to Colorado. I was probably, in lots of my classes, I was probably the only person that was my skin tone. Colorado is very white.
The phrase culture shock to me is probably the idea of going somewhere that's beyond what you're used to and what's normal and what you just consider as the mundane to someplace that is completely different. It's almost to me kind of like a parallel universe to the world that I grew up living in. I've only experienced culture shock a few times in my life. Definitely when I've gotten older, I've been a lot more cognizant of what culture shock was in the world around me. When I experienced culture shock, it was definitely a little unnerving just because you're kind of out of your element, and I just felt like I had to quickly analyze what was going on and adapt to what everyone else was doing, otherwise I was going to stick out. It certainly gives you a little bit of anxiety not being around what you're used to and not seeing places that you're used to or being around people that you're comfortable with.
I think my best quality is my kindness towards the people that I love, but perhaps maybe my kindness to those who need it.
That is a very hard question. What is my best quality? I think that I just try to be nice to everybody that I meet.
I think I'm very kind. I think I'm able to emphasize people really well. I think that's probably my best quality.
I want to say maybe being driven. I think these last few years have really had me think more about what motivates me and what drives me.
Just being flexible. I never really got to plan out my life growing up, especially just because of how uncertain things were.
I think my best quality is my ability to adapt to change.
I would certainly say that my best quality would probably be my optimistic outlook on most things.
I always get compliments about my smile, so I guess that my smile is my best quality.
I have a good psychological understanding of people and why they act the way they do, how they might respond to stuff. So I'm good in social situations usually.
I don't know what my best quality is. I'm kind. I think maybe my kindness. I'm sympathetic. I think that's a good quality. I'm caring. I'm generous. It's hard to pinpoint just one. You just try to be good and try to be nice and try to get along.
The one thing I wish I could change about myself is my smile. I feel like my smile's crooked and it always just drives me crazy, but that's okay because my brain's a little crooked, so it kind of goes together.
You mean besides my very crooked nose? My ability to handle criticism.
Good Lord. Well, you know, when you're perfect, I always wish I did better in school.
I think there are lots of things I wish I could have changed about my past self.
I wish I could be more confident in who I am.
There's a million things I wish I could change about myself. None physical. Life is all about really improving yourself and building better character. So to me, there's a million things about my character that I can continue to improve and continue to develop and adapt.
I've never felt the need to conform necessarily to what people want from me.
No, there's nothing I would want to change about myself.
I don't regret anything that I've done in my life. I don't regret any choices that I've made, and I really believe that all of those choices in my past and everything has built up to who I am right now, and there's not a single thing I would change about that.
I wouldn't change anything about who I am. I love who I am.
The one thing that I value the most in my life is my family, my husband and my 2 children.
I value consistency and stability. I really value people who appear stable to me.
I think the relationships that I've formed over the past, I don't know, maybe 10-ish years, I've gotten to meet some great people. These are the people that I find myself, relying on time and time again. And I think if I had to choose one thing that I value kind of above everything else, it's these relationships that I've formed with people.
God, my family, of course. That's a question. It's kind of a loaded question. I mean, my family is the most thing that I value the most. The second thing I value the most is my boat.
Really value all the relationships I have. I think I've cultivated a lot of strong relationships since being in college.
I value quality time with people.
I really value the people in my life.
Relationships. People are innately social, and you can't go your life without interacting with people, so why not interact with the best kinds of people? I have formed such wonderful relationships that I hope to carry on for the rest of my life.
I value my connections with people. The people closest in my life give me the greatest reward because it's a constant connection and relationship that you're fostering with another person, and I truly value those who are in my life and the connections that I make with people.
The thing that I value the most in my life is my friends, my family, and all the relationships that I've formed since being in this country. It's not easy being a third culture kid and not knowing where you're from or where home is. But through the creation of my honors thesis, I learned that while every individual has their own experiences and culture, we're all human and share very similar feelings and emotions. And I suppose that those similarities are why each of these people are so important in my life. I wouldn't have had the experience that I did my first year of college or even in this country if I hadn't met the people I did when I first started my life here. I'm so proud to know these people because of what they've given me and how they have shaped who I am. And it's because of them that I've found my place and my home here.